Okay. Hello again, everyone. Uh, Welcome to the week 8 build of Gatecrashers. And we have a lot to cover because this was a very productive week. Um, so, the first thing you'll see is an icon pass has been done. Pretty much everything has icons that are a little bit closer to what it needs to be. You also notice that the damage numbers are looking a little bit more sci-fi now. We'll come back and do some work on the font as well. The idea with the icons is that most of them, the general UI element should be icon followed by name, right? We're trying to convert more and more of our iconography to that. In this battle, you'll notice that there is an enemy preview now. So you are able to see what the stats of an enemy are, what their weaknesses and resistances are once you've defeated them. And right now it is just you defeat one of them and it gives you all the information, but I want to set it up such that you sort of incrementally get pieces of information each time you defeat them, or with the method that you do it, right? You also note that on that party command menu, we have debug commands. Now, a couple more will be added, but these have just been helping out with speeding up testing. And then I made a special map in the game that is just where all of the heal points, the shops, everything is set up, and so that's being used to do that. You'll also notice that the message log in battles has been massively overhauled. Still could use a bit of work, right? Just like the icons, not all the icons are kind of done yet. But yeah, the goal with that is that we want to be relying on the battle log window to communicate the changes in the battle a little bit more. So we want to be using the symbology if we can, as well as using colors. And as a general rule, anywhere where we use a color, we also want to use a symbol, because we don't want visually impaired folks that are playing this game to have a hard time playing the game, right? We want them to, just have as good of a time or as bad of a time as everybody else. So this just makes sure that everyone's in the same playing field. Okay, so a thing that I think that in this recording that I'll demonstrate is that the run starts kind of going south here, and it gives me a good opportunity to illustrate the way that heal points work. Heal points are the medical stations, right? We've been using them as sort of like full heals, right? But here we're pretty severely damaged. We head back into that room with the FOE. This is the point I make the decision where I'm not going to use the med patch. Instead, we're going to go on sort of this one last run. There's no way that we can win this battle. So yeah, we go up against the enemy. And we wanted to defeat us because this is what happens when you're defeated, is that you're brought back to a medical station that you've set up as your checkpoint. Medical stations now have sort of charges, sort of like a battery with them, and you can expend an amount of that battery in order to give different healing treatments to your party members. The main ones are for your HP, for your energy, and then for status effects. And if you do the total cure, it does all three of them, one after the other. But you may want to actually save on the total cures because it takes a while for med stations to recharge the amount of energy that they need in order to do those healings successively. And the way that it recharges is a number of battles that you have to do. So specifically, every other battle will give sort of 1 point of charge. Different med stations track the charges separately, right? So if you are having a hard time and your med station is out of resources, then this pushes you to explore further. At least in theory, we'll sort of see how much players want to camp the med stations as much as possible. So yeah, Here you're seeing some of the new symbology that we're using for equipment, right? We are using the star system to sort of denote their like relative strength and rarity, and then a couple of descriptors of what they can do, and then eventually you'll see the resist system that is noted there as well. You'll notice that when you're on the map, the sort of state icon area that shows the class icon right now, in your default class, it's called backup blanket. And this is because this is sort of what you are, right? And it's sort of the premise for the story, right? The story is fairly light, at least for this demo, right? But the core idea is that you're clones, you're not the originals, your originals have died, right? And you are having to explore through a space that they sort of once inhabited. Right, and sort of slowly gather your things, right, and be able to do that. So here we have a med station where we don't want to expend any of the charges. Everybody's properly healed up, so we actually just want to set it, right, as a checkpoint. And we're going to use it pretty soon. So these mini oculuses made them a little bit easier to deal with. Your dart gun can just take them out like in one blow, and then for other weapons it takes about 2 blows to be able to do that. So if you're down to your fists, right, it doesn't cause too much of an issue. Okay, so we're gonna go up against this roller warden, and we're actually gonna fight like pretty carefully because yeah, we have a bunch of weapons, right? So we have a pretty reasonable chance of taking out a roller warden. The hope is that you can take them out without anybody going down. But the good news is that you get experience even if you're dead, right? Because death is sort of like sort of a temp state here, right? So here everybody will sort of get experience. I'm going back and forth on that, but I do think that with how revives are working and how they'll work as part of the story, right? I don't really want death to be the impediment, at least not early on, right? I think that there are more like scary status effects, right? Like your petrifies, right? I kind of want to experiment like infesting one of the backups with like eggs, right? And you're like, if I take enough steps, right, the egg hatches, right? I take mortal damage, right? And we're forced into an encounter, right? Like kind of crazy, like sci-fi kind of things like that. You'll notice a couple of new items here. So flash grenades. So this is similar to the Volt and Pyro grenades, but it doesn't deal damage. Rather, it just has a really good chance of inflicting that status effect. Right? And so you can use it as a crowd control measure. This is because like early bird, which is the way that you access blind right now, right, as a status effect, requires you to crit in order to deal a status effect, and sneaks early on aren't good enough to do that reliably, right? You have to, in theory, you have to stealth then do early bird, right? But like that is using using 2 abilities in order to inflict blind, right? So I kind of wanted to give a easier way of doing that. So yeah, here we've taken out 2 of the roller wardens, right? This should be doable, right? Like it's the roller wardens aren't meant to be like too hard as FOEs, but rather they're more of a like an equipment gate, right? So the thing that they're really testing is that like nobody like tries to hit them unarmed, because if you hit them unarmed, they get to counter, and so they're dealing more damage than you can kind of keep up with. So here you're sort of seeing like the meta, as it were. So as I'm doing these playthroughs, I've been experimenting with all melee parties, 3 melee, 1 range, 2 melee, 2 ranged. And I think I quite like the 2 melee, 2 ranged meta. I'll obviously test like every combination, right? Like I'll test what like 4 range looks like. Here we do a bit of cut. But we're sort of in that same spot, yeah, we've sort of changed this area a little bit. So this fight happens right before the op station. It's because I was noticing a dip in the EXP curve, where you're getting to the op station at level 2, just on the brink of level 3, right? And so these spike tile fights, they're sort of there to boost your like kind of required level a little bit. So yeah, so you go up against these welder drones, and if you've been doing every spike tile fight, right, which is fights that I like deliberately throwing your way, right, that feel like random encounters, sneakily putting EXP to you, right, you should be at level 3 at this point. I also added a med station here because I was realizing that it's too early to have you go a long stretch without a med station, but we'll try to make it a longer stretch once you reach the second floor. So here we go about changing licenses. We have the class icons, as you can see, right? The goal is we don't want to be doing this through choice menus. We want to be doing this through its own separate scene. That'll require a bit of setup. So for now, we're just doing this in this kind of like quick and dirty way. Okay, so yeah, so we have a pretty decent party comp. You want to be around level 3. And I'm showing that we can stack bracers, right? Like you can stack shields now, and that's gonna be important because we end up having this interesting dynamic here where we have the frontline grunt have armor and a shield, but we have the backline or the midline grunt have 2 shields, and you'll see pretty soon why. So hey, we managed to get flying enemies working. Their AI to aggro towards you doesn't quite work, but like at least I managed to make them move, which is I think just I'll consider that a victory. Okay, so you go up against these razor swarms, recycler swarms. Maybe I should just call them razor swarms, but thematically they're sort of the cleanup crew, right, in the sort of engineering. So they're still pretty tough, right? But they are much more manageable, and also I've set it up such that status effects are on turn end instead of action end, so we are able to use the action time solution for recycler swarms without that causing like major. So yeah, so we go up against 2 of them. This sort of gives you just like an HP need bag, like in order to test out a bunch of abilities. Yeah, once you defeat one of them, you learn the weakness, right, of the other, and you are able to sort of take advantage of it. Yeah, so there's an acid cast, right? That's gonna be pretty helpful. Should have done a little bit more damage, but it's okay. Sometimes you low roll. Okay, so yeah, we proceed in this manner. Stealth is persisting between battles. I'm testing that out. But also, I think like stealth there may have been like an implementation error with it. I'm gonna fix up the sneak class. Off the 3, I think Scion feels good, Grunt feels good, Sneak is struggling. Let me get dual wielding working, and then like if that's like viable, then that's sort of where I'll encourage players to kind of build towards. But like ranged sneaks should also like work out really well, because like the idea is that you slip away and then you use your ranged weapon and you crit with your ranged weapon. But for whatever reason, like stealth isn't quite giving you a crit every single time. So I'll figure that out next time. Okay, what else do we cover? So we've covered some heal points, the fixed message logs. I'll talk about some of the new items as well, like when they come up. Yeah, so range weapons auto reload now. So they reload at the start of the battle, so long as you have enough ammo, you don't have to spend your first turn reloading anymore, which was a issue that I noticed last time. But if you don't have any ammo in your pack, right, it doesn't automatically reload. Also, if you are equipping and unequipping range weapons, then I sort of factor in the amount of ammo that they would normally take, right, as part of that reload. This is an automatic process, but I don't think players will mind. It sort of saves a little bit of upkeep on their end. Okay, so yeah, so here we're sort of having to figure out these welder drones, okay? Yeah, it sort of brings the party down a little bit. And that's fine, because like at level 3, we want this area to feel a little bit harder than usual. Here I think I use Guard Ally because we really want Bedware's attack to go off, right? But I'm unsure if they have like enough health to kind of justify that. Okay, use a couple med patches. I think the one note I took from this playthrough is that there is a med station here, right? But I should place it like in the spot where the recombinator is, just so that people are like, oh, thank God, right? Like there's a med station there. Because yeah, we do really starve, right? In that stretch. Okay, so here is the new implemented version of that reactor puzzle. It's not really a puzzle, right? And I think that like that's probably one big change I would have is to like make it more of a puzzle. But it is doing its job in teaching you about hazard zones and how to use the resources to navigate them. Because here there is a med station down here. There's a med station up there. And it is still insufficient in order to do all of your healing, right? Because you're not only having to heal HP, now you're also having to heal your energy, right? And this is where items that do those things come in quite handy. So if you want to like keep your energy supplied, you may as well use a couple of those med patches. I made enemies drop them a little bit more. Just so that people can feel a bit of forward momentum as they're going through, because the tension of the battles is still there because my patches can't be used during battles. But I don't want the economy to be the thing that like sinks you, at least currently, right? Later on it will, right? Okay, so yeah, so we have Ensign here set up with both a ranged weapon and a melee weapon, and this turns out to be kind of a killer combo for grunts. So grunts usually, I figured, like would want to just have their one option, but Ensign is able to sort of sit in the midline and then charge to the front, and then the melee weapon still allows them, right, in order to take an action immediately, right, instead of like having to shuffle and go. So yeah, engine leeches. I noticed that the status window wasn't refreshing quite right when you killed the engine leech that was responsible for everything. And so part of the reason that we set up Ensign with 2 shields is that it means that they initiate every fight with a shield, right? Right, and then they're still in position to like continue the fight or back off, right? Just depending on what. And yeah, that turned out to be like a pretty good combination. So here, reactor power is down. Please don't notice the fact that I had to like manually measure out the tabs for that gap window so that it didn't overlap with the the borders. Okay, so we've gotten the reactor down 50%, and so now we're gonna have to go down that like long hallway, right, in order to get to the other side to access the other sort of central area. Now I'm playing through this section with sort of foreknowledge of how this is sort of organized, right? I really want to see how players end up doing that, because the idea with this area is that the reactor chamber is dangerous. You explore it in chunks, and you sort of use the negative space that is sort of carved out by the auto mapping to figure out where you need to kind of go next or where you need to investigate next. And as you make those passes through the reactor chamber, yes, you lose resources in the form of losing HP, but you are gaining resources as well as you're doing these fights. Something you'll note is that we show the items that you get, right, with the same like symbol text like thing. Also, I decided instead of using the stars here, I would use sort of like Lancer does this as well. This sort of like military, like I forget the proper like term, but like basically like the sort of a rank promotion kind of a thing. I don't want to lean too heavy into like mil SF, right? But like there's elements of that in the setting, so I think it makes sense with the skills. Alright, so we're deciding who to give the spike rod to, right? And so, yeah, so the reason that you want multiple weapons on, right, that are different is that you get to hit with different types. And the reason you might want to have the same of them on is so that you want to get more hits. So that second part hasn't been completed yet, and maybe we'll tackle that. So next week is not going to be because like we've been making such good progress, and B1F is at the very least feature complete, if not content complete. I think content complete will come a little later. I wanted to because day job is kind of calling me to focus on it a little bit more. I think next week is probably going to be another like lecture style one. I promise it won't be as long as before, but we'll be talking specifically about items and item design. I'll go over what I'm calling the research system, which is basically as you sell things to the Recombinator, it starts researching new items, and especially items that you may never run into on the map, like will show up in the show. And that's a big part of the sort of exploration, coming back to the Recombinator, feeding the economy kind of loop. Right, so part of the reason that you look forward to turning in a large amount of items that you collected is that you're not only getting credits back to them, but you're also feeding this research loop, which is potentially giving you more items, which allow you to explore further, and so on and so forth. Something you're probably noticing is that status effects like blindness stick around, and that's because there's a new item called the remedy pill, which you can use to clear them. They also clear after like walking around a bit, usually, right? So you can potentially depend on that as well. But this is the use for the cure like status effects, right? We'll see how players feel about this, but I already had in mind having certain status effects persist after battle. So some are only in battle status effects, like stun. Stun doesn't make it too much sense to persist across battles, but like something like paralyze might want to persist across battles. So yeah, a game that I think does the tiered status effect thing really well is Weird and Unfortunate Things by Unity. Not the engine, the developer. Unity is kind of one of the best out there, in my opinion, in terms of making really crunchy RPG Maker like games. They make super dungeons like nobody's business. Like, probably the only one that I've found. Feel free to recommend your face to me as well. But the super dungeon at the end of Bloodstone Allure and both the end game dungeon and the post game dungeon, Weird and Unfortunate Things, I think are a real highlight, right? In terms of their sort of mechanical design, all the cool things that you get to do, the fact that there's an engine to enable you to control those dungeons that you sort of keep feeding and have to retreat back. It's very cool. They're a very cool designer. I'm looking forward to Israel Allure, which is their like next game with a job system, which is really cool. Okay, fanboy time over, but please check their games out. They make a fantastic case for why you should want to make your RPGs an RPG Maker, right? Because like so long as you like know kind of what you want to execute on, right? This engine has limits, but there's a lot of ways around them, as you can see, right? In the game that I'm making. Okay, so we pick up some mesh, we pick up some ammo, right? And we are kind of continuing this exploration. So one of the things that you notice is that when we're exploring the side corridors, the terminal that you interface with turns off the hazard floor, right? For that section, and that enables you to get to the other side with your resources intact. Right. It also allows you to challenge the heavy loaders, right, with a much better like assemblage. So we're not going to challenge them now, but when we come back for a third trip, is when I attempt to challenge the heavy loader, and we do a pretty good job of taking it out, to where I'll probably bump up the heavy loader a little bit more. So yeah, so we're doing a fight, and notice that like we're not taking hazard damage every single turn, right? So now that the party is level 4, they lose resources, they occasionally get down, but they are having sort of increasing command, right, of this area, right, and all the things that okay. So here I was just like, should I use the debug kill all? And I was just like that. I want to try to play the game as much kind of on its own terms. Because I think while I was recording this, I was like losing track of time, right? While like putting together the video, and so yeah, I had to like have an alarm kind of snap me out of it. I hope the game is as engaging to watch as it is to play, but I hope it's more engaging to play than it is to watch. But I at least hope that like it's not boring to watch. At the very least, I hope my voiceover helps sort of illustrate all the cool things. So one of the things that I should mention is that med stations, right? They have their like whole charge system, but this applies to other things as well, such as junk, like the junk piles that you collect from. So after a number of battles, the junk pile sort of like refills up, right? And we're extracting a couple things from the junk pile a little bit earlier, and we'll go back and we'll see that it has been filled up, which is helpful, right? If you're sort of like, it just makes sure that like you're able to like keep that the economy going. So one of the reasons that I implemented the med station with this charge thing is that initially I wanted to implement it just being like, we cost you credits, right, in order to do things. But a curious thing about the way that we've set up this game, right, is that most of your econ progression is in assets as opposed to liquid credits. And the reason for that should be obvious, is that enemies don't drop credits, right? To me, it doesn't make sense for non-human enemies. Credits, right? Why would they be holding on to credits, right? Again, in most RPGs, this is abstracted, right? Like, we don't care, right? To a certain level, right? But I do think that having the drops be in items is important, because I wanted to feed into your visits to the Recombinator, you selling off a bunch of junk, that unlocking a bunch of new things in the Recombinator, right? And so that's kind of why, for a while, like it'll take a little bit, right, for your thing. So one thing you'll notice is that the sneaks, like attack animation with the slash, has changed, but it doesn't deal 2 instances of damage, it just deals the 1, so it's just the animation that's changed. It's cool that the animation like automatically changed, that was a new. But yeah, we'll set it up so that they have the advantages of if they have 2 hardware, then they will be sort of dealing 2 attacks with them, right? Which is extremely helpful. Okay, so as we dispatch these welder drones, and we run into this welder drone times 4 group before, but we are much more able to deal with it. And so yeah, we dismantle them, and the reactor power is down to 0. Now at this point, I was debating whether all the hazard floors go away, or if you still need to use the terminal, right, in order to sort of suppress the fires, right, to do that. And that got me thinking about like, So I've got this feature complete, but it still doesn't feel like a reactor malfunction. So I do want to redesign this area a little bit more, right? So it seems a little bit more obvious what you're doing and why you want to go to certain places. This may require some assets. So rather than the reactor just being like 4 terminals around a pillar, I may like make like sort of like a dilithium chamber, right, in like Star Trek, right? That kind of like an asset, right? And then have that be in the middle, and for you to still move around the edges of it, right? But it's along these like catwalks instead. That's maybe a little bit too high scope, right? But once we're done with Force Walk, I'll come back here and redesign this area a little bit more, so like it makes more sense, like navigation, right? That based on the environment hints we're giving, that's more clear to the player what they need to do. Okay, so here's where I think I decide to challenge the heavy loader. And so last time when you saw we fought the heavy loader, we got absolutely destroyed. This time we are very prepared. Yeah, we are gonna test out a bunch of elements, right? That's why all these elements are out here, right? And try to put on a status effects. So this first round of attacks goes out, right? Heavy loader is dealing us a little bit of damage. Okay. We're trying to eat up their shield, and we're doing a pretty decent job of it. Okay. So now the decision is like how defensive or how offensive we decide to go. We got Pyro, that's probably not the element that we really want. So we have those Volt Grenades saved from way back then. And I think I decided to get the Volt Grenades is because they were blinded, right? So that doesn't affect the item use, right? The items are certain, whereas if they use their rifle, they would have a hard time with it. So we get the guaranteed junk drop, which is this L core, like a logic unit. And that gives us a lot of credits in return. That's also like one of the items I would feed into that research system. And we get our party up to level 5, which is around where I want the party to be at the end of B1F, right? Going back into 1F, right? But exploring the back half of it. So these FOE fights allow you to skip ahead on the XP curve just a little bit, so it allows more experienced players, right, to take like interesting risks, right, as they go through this area. Okay, so I decided not to explore the other corridor, but we would be free to if we wanted to, because I want to show off the back half of this area. To show that it's been more implemented, but not necessarily fully implemented quite yet. I think I decide, do I pick up that carpet mesh? No. I think, I guess I decide to save the credits. And there might be a good reason why. Nope, going in there, buying that carpet mesh. Never mind. I have forgotten what I did in the footage that I recorded just like about 40 minutes ago. That's hilarious. Okay, so yeah, so we head out, run into an encounter here. We're well equipped to deal with this encounter, so rather than using abilities, right, we just, we want to sort of weakness match as much as we can and see if we can get our can't one turn them quite yet, but this is not much of a challenge, and that's fine, right? Like once you started this area at level 3, you were kind of struggling against these enemies. So we want to show in the scope of a floor the sort of like growth curve. Right? The enemies may pose like a tax, right, in larger numbers. And here I made a mistake. So it turns out there's actually a very funny bug that causes that. So it turns out that the direction facing thing that I'm using to check actually has two different objects that it feeds the random roller, right, for what the items that you get. So depending on the direction that you're facing, it actually gives you a different thing at the end. So if you were facing the other direction when accessing that junk pile, the final item is usually going to be a piece of equipment at the end. That's kind of why I want you to push for it and then like that makes you risk getting into an ambush encounter, which I can use to go attack resources. Right? I will potentially have you run into. So this spike encounter used to be the 3 recycler swarms, right? And that's what I realized is that that's a tax fight, right? So I think that I kind of want the sense of momentum, right? Especially after I slowed down the player during that last hazard section. We have some light ammo here. The reason that it's there is not necessarily to feed into whoever the ranged user is, but if you're not using ranged weapons, I'm giving you items to guilt you into using ranged weapons, if that makes sense. Okay, so here we pick up a hazard suit. This is probably the strongest armor in the demo. Because yeah, it's heavy armor. It gives you a huge defensive boost. You can wear the heavy armor with the light armor currently, because I don't know how to do slots like the multi-slot equipment yet. But you won't be able to, right? When you go and kind of equip it. But yeah, that heavy armor like resists a bunch of status effects, which is useful against all the FOE fights, and more importantly, the boss fight at the end of this dungeon. Because the boss is going to be very demanding, right, on those like ailment applications, and that the light bridges, now that they work, as you can see, they connect us back, right, to this healing spot, right, which allows us to go back, set up a checkpoint, and move forward, right. And it like turned out to be like a very natural like loop back, right, to sort of do it this way. Now here, I think I tried to bait the flying FOE to encounter me, but it turns out because I don't give you a way to wait in place, it's a little bit harder to do. So I'll probably be implementing that for a future week. But also I need to fix the chase radius on the flying FOE. It might be thinking that like it can't draw paths to me, which is why it's not able to do its thing. So here's a bit of a preview of the back half of floor 1. It's a sort of like hedge maze like type of thing where you run into more organic enemies. I decided to head back here for a bit and set this med station up as a checkpoint, because if I die in the hedge maze, right, I'll end up back in floor B1F, and it'll be a long run back. I've heard from a famous indie game called Silk Song that people don't like run backs anymore. And yeah, we run into Sanguiflora, which is the typical type of enemy you'll run into in these gardens. But I haven't implemented the Sanguiflora yet, so it's pretty easy to take down. Yeah, no, they'll be having a little bit more defenses than that. But yeah, that more or less wraps it up for this week. Hopefully that felt like a lot. It definitely felt like a lot on my end to like implement all of that. But yeah, it's really feeling like a game. It's really coming together. We have sort of 1.5 floors implemented, and hopefully with floor 1 back half being fully implemented, that'll set us up for like the final floor. There's a lot of work to be done on the final floor, but I'm really looking forward to bring this together, right? And hopefully with the demo attracting some attention, so we can grow the team, right? Because yeah, I don't really want this to be a solo project for too long if I can't help it. But hey, if this doesn't catch anyone's interest, then yeah, I'll continue plugging away at it. Thank you very much for watching, especially if you've stuck around this long. And hope to see you next week. Get your notebooks ready. We're going to go into lecture mode. Talk to you soon. Bye.